They called her weak long before they ever learned her name. It started as a whisper, then turned into a habit, something said casually in hallways and training pits, always when they thought she couldn't hear. A female SEAL was still a novelty to some of them, a challenge to traditions carved into decades of muscle memory and ego. She walked through it all without reacting, her posture straight, her eyes forward, carrying herself like someone who had already survived worse storms than words. Her name was Lieutenant Maya Raines, and she had earned every inch of the trident on her chest the hard way. The compound was buzzing that morning. Over 250 operators from different units had gathered for a joint evaluation and demonstration, a rare event where skills were tested in front of peers rather than instructors. The air smelled of dust, sweat, and burned powder from the ranges. Conversations overlapped, laughter burst out in short aggressive spikes, and somewhere in the distance, steel rang against steel. Maya felt the weight of the crowd the moment she stepped onto the training floor. Eyes followed her, some curious, some amused, some openly dismissive. She ignored all of it, focusing on her breathing, the steady rhythm that had carried her through Hell Week, through deployments, through nights when sleep never came. Across the mat stood Chief Petty Officer Cole Vance, a legend in his own mind and in the stories told by others. Big, broad, scarred, and loud, he was known for humiliating anyone he deemed unworthy. He had already made comments that morning, joking about how standards were slipping, about how politics were letting people through who didn't belong. Each remark was followed by laughter from a few and uncomfortable silence from many. Maya heard him now, his voice carrying easily over the crowd, saying something about how this was a combat unit, not a social experiment. The instructor announced a spontaneous demonstration. Hand-to-hand combat, controlled, but real, a chance to show fundamentals under pressure. Volunteers were requested, and before Maya could even consider stepping forward, Vance's voice cut through the air. He pointed at her, smiling like a man who thought the ending was already written. He said she should go first, that it would be educational. A few people chuckled, others shifted uncomfortably. Maya felt the familiar tightening in her chest, not fear, but clarity. This was a moment that would happen sooner or later. She nodded once and stepped onto the mat. Vance followed, rolling his shoulders, cracking his neck, soaking in the attention. He leaned in close enough that only she could hear him and told her he'd go easy, that he didn't want to be the guy who broke her in front of everyone. Maya didn't reply, she didn't glare, she didn't smile. She simply settled into her stance, feet light, hands relaxed, eyes locked on his center mass. The crowd fell quiet in that strange way it does when something feels off, when instinct says this isn't going to go the way people expect. The signal was given. Vance moved first, confident, aggressive, telegraphing his strength. He came in hard, trying to dominate with size and intimidation. Maya shifted, not back but slightly to the side, letting his momentum carry past where she had been. Her counter was fast and precise, a sharp strike to destabilize him, followed by a grip that looked effortless but was anything but. Training took over, years of repetition compressed into a few seconds of motion. She attacked angles, balance, breathing. She didn't fight his strength. She dismantled it. Vance recovered quickly, surprised but not humbled yet. He came again, anger flashing across his face now, the smile gone. The second exchange was faster, more brutal. He tried to corner her, to overwhelm her with pressure. Maya absorbed just enough to stay inside his reach, her movements economical, her face calm. She could hear her own breath, steady and controlled, even as his grew louder and more ragged. The crowd was silent now, every operator watching closely, some leaning forward without realizing it. Then it happened, a mistake so small most people would miss it. Vance overcommitted, relying on power instead of position. Maya saw it instantly. She stepped in, not away, her timing perfect. Her movement was a blur of trained instinct, a sequence drilled into her bones through countless hours of practice. A strike landed cleanly, followed by a controlled takedown. Vance hit the mat hard, the sound echoing through the space like a dropped weight. Before he could react, before his brain could catch up with what had happened, she had him locked, immobilized, his options gone. The instructor called it. Just like that. One moment Vance was the dominant presence, the next he was staring at the mat, breathing hard, his pride bruised worse than his body. Maya released him immediately and stepped back, offering a hand to help him up. He hesitated, then took it, the grip firm but different now, stripped of arrogance. The silence lasted a heartbeat longer, then the room erupted. Not laughter this time, respect, shock, a few nods, a few quiet smiles, people looking at Maya not as an exception, but as an operator. She stepped off the mat without celebration, without acknowledging the noise. Her heart was pounding now, adrenaline finally catching up. She felt the familiar mix of exhaustion and calm that followed intense focus. As she moved through the crowd, she heard fragments of conversation, disbelief giving way to admiration. Someone muttered that they hadn't seen that coming. Someone else said it was textbook execution. Maya kept walking, knowing that moments like this changed things, slowly, one mind at a time. Later, in the quieter hours after training, a few younger operators approached her. They asked questions, not about gender, but about technique, about mindset, about how she stayed so calm. Maya answered honestly. She talked about discipline, about preparation, about respecting the process more than the outcome. She told them that the only opinions that mattered were earned through effort, not volume. Vance passed by at one point, paused, and gave her a short nod. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. In their world, that mattered. That night, as Maya sat alone cleaning her gear, she reflected on how close doubt always lurked, how easy it would have been to let the noise get inside her head. She thought about the people who would hear about what happened, about the stories that would spread, about how some would exaggerate and others would deny it entirely. None of that mattered. What mattered was that when the moment came, she was ready. She had trusted her training and herself. If this story resonates with you, if you believe in strength earned through resilience and discipline, take a moment to support the channel that brings these stories to life. Subscribe to Her World Stories for more powerful, realistic, and inspiring narratives that remind us what true capability looks like under pressure. Your support helps keep these stories coming. The next day, training resumed like always. No announcements, no special treatment. Maya lined up with everyone else, blending back into the unit where she belonged. But something had shifted, subtle yet real. The whispers were gone, replaced by quiet respect. She knew there would be other tests, other moments where she'd have to prove herself all over again. That was the nature of the job. She welcomed it. In the end, it wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving herself right. Right to trust her preparation. Right to stand her ground. Right to step onto that mat when every instinct in the room expected her to fall. They had called her weak. Now they knew better.